Hello YouTubers, it's me here once again, and today I thought I'd do a video talking about the Vancouver Canucks and where do they go from here. Now, looking at this team, I looked at them last year and I said, this team is not even a playoff team. I thought they were actually one of the worst rosters in the league, actually probably the worst roster in the league, and looking at it, I'm shocked Colorado finished worse than them, but it is what it is. Now, looking at the dynamics of this team, there's many ways the Vancouver Canucks can go. They can go the retool route, the soft rebuild, I call that the 5-year plan rebuild, or there's something called a full systematic rebuild that the Canucks could explore. And that's pretty much like doomsday. That's bringing everything down to studs and rebuilding the entire organization. Now, the owner, I know, he probably doesn't even want to hear a 10-year rebuild, but you could look at this roster and you could make a case for it. But anyway, let's get into it. The Vancouver Canucks last year were just dreadful. So they go to the lottery, and they were picking number 2 because of what I still don't understand why they changed it. Now every team gets a shot at the first overall pick, so now Vancouver's number 5 instead of number 2, and I could make a whole video about that saying why the hell they changed it, because people are saying, oh, the Edmonton Oilers. Well, the Oilers only finished worse 2 of those 4 years, and really, truthfully, even the McDavid year, out of the top 5 teams, 4 of them tanked. The Oilers were just dread-awfully bad just due to Kevin Lowe and McTavish's stupidity. But I digress on that topic. Now, the Vancouver Canucks, they do have some good players, don't get me wrong. You still have Bo Horvat, you have Brock Besler, who in a limited amount of time showed that, hey, maybe this guy could be something on this team. I'd say the strength of this defense of this team is their defensive core. Now, looking at it, you have guys like Gabranson, who's an RFA this year. Yeah, still have Hutton, Tanev, Stretcher, who at points last year I really liked watching. You still have Edler. You have Alex Bielsa, who could be maybe that guy. Spiza, they could work out as their number 7th. If one's not playing good, bring another one in. And I think you have some guys in the minors. Now, you did, however, lose Nikita Trampkin and Philip Larson to the KHL, who they bolted, which for whatever reason, homesick or my ass, probably looked at this roster, said they're not going to be good for a couple years, so call me in a couple years when you're better. But holy shit. And you look at this, and where really do they go? The Sedins are old. And I've heard people say, trade the Sedins, trade the Sedins, trade the Sedins. But there's really some points I want to make about that. First off, their contract, you're going to have to retain money, which some might say, well, that's a good thing because it's only for 1 year. But why? Because the guys you're going to bring in aren't going to be, truthfully, a hell of a lot better than the Sedins. And the other part of it, who's going to want them? Like, really, truthfully, you acquire them. You have to acquire them pretty much together. And people aren't going to give you a hell of a lot for them. So you're kind of stuck in that boat. Now, I'm not the dumb dick GM, Mike Gillis, that gave them absolutely ridiculous contracts. But, hey, it is what it is. Now, looking at the rest of the team, I said last year it was probably a mistake to bring in Louis Eriksson. I still believe that it's terrible. It's kind of like it's wasting most of Louis Eriksson's career. So I could see in the next couple of years him being traded. And it's just looking at this team. You're pretty good down the middle, though. You still have the Sedins. You have Horvat, Granlund, Sutter. They can all play center, which is a good thing. They're deep there. Their defense is good. Ryan Miller's the UFA. I think he's bolting out of Vancouver. But you still have Thatcher Demko and Jakob Markstrom. We'll see how that works out. And you're looking at this team, as I'm looking at Cap Friendly and looking at the rest of this team. Once you get past those Sedins, Edler, Miller, Eriksson, and Sutter, this is actually a really young team. Now, the Vancouver Canucks, I'll say this right now, is that I know last year they took Oli Levy, who I thought was the wrong player. They should have taken Matt Tkachuk. That's because Matt Tkachuk's a forward, and I thought Yoli Levy was a luxury pick at defense. I'm like, really? Because I was thinking about this. You could at least have, like, last year, you could have had Tkachuk on your second line playing with Horvat. Because looking at this, it's not very good. And then I look at this offseason. Bo Horvat's contract's up. Now, he's coming out of his UFA. I've heard the Canucks saying they want to give him a long-term extension. But if I'm Bo Horvat, how many years do I want to waste? Because if this is a 10-year rebuild, how many good years do I want to waste playing for the Vancouver Canucks? And that's really where it comes down to a lot of poor drafting by Mike Gillis and this front office, and a lot of trading away of your future for crap. Like, I'll admit it, like, trading for Gabranson last year, that was a luxury. You didn't have to. If you would have not traded for Gabranson and drafted Levy, I would have said, okay, I see why. But to trade a guy like McCann for him, who was another center, I know you're deep at center, but really? It just made no sense to me. And another one is Jake Virtanen, who's up next year. And you're telling me Jake Virtanen, if he is not better than some of these guys on this team, then Jake Virtanen is a bust. And think about it, 3 years after guys drafted, you're already considering him a bust. Wow. And looking at the rest of the team now, yeah, you could do the soft rebuild of about 4 or 5 years, but that also means you have to hit on a lot of stuff, and it has to go right. Because ask the Oilers, when you don't draft right after the first round, even in the first round, I'd say they didn't draft right, and you try and shoehorn square pegs into round holes, it kind of blows up in your face. Now, a lot of people saying Ryan Miller's a free agent. He's probably gone. But the good thing about Vancouver, they do have a lot of cap space. So if they wanted to make a splash, they could. But do they have the assets? And you're looking down at their minor system, where, yes, you do have Thatcher Demko. You got Jonathan Dahlen and the Burrows deal. The thing about these prospects, I'm not going to harp on them too much because I don't really expect a damn thing from them. It's kind of a weird thing. Yeah, you got Khladobin, who at times Willie Desjardins was kind of pissed at. And the other thing in this offseason that happened is Willie Desjardins got fired, and the guy they brought in, Travis Green, I'm going to say this about Travis Green. I don't give a shit what he's done in the minors. You're looking at this team, I would say hire Ralph Kruger, because that guy can coach. He is the only coach outside of Todd McClellan that got anything out of the Oilers. You've seen what he did at the World Cup. He's proven he can coach. Give him whatever the fuck he wants and bring him here and coach. Travis Green, I have nothing against the guy, but my God, like, you're bringing in this guy saying, oh, he's going to relate, but here's the thing. Travis Green, we could be talking about in 2 to 3 years as another fired head coach. So you'd be back in the same boat anyway. But I'm looking at this team, and I'm looking at what they have, and their forward core is so weak. I'm going to say that their forward core is terrible. And I would say for the next 4 or 5 drafts, it should be offense, 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 offense. Because your forwards outside of maybe the Sedins, Eriksson, Horvat, you're expecting guys like Sven Baertschi to be great. Brendan Gaunce, who I'm not sold on. You're looking at a lot of the contracts that are up this year, and I'll read off some of the names that are RFA or UFA. You have Brendan Gaunce, Bo Horvat, Joseph Cramarosa, Reed Boucher, Anton Rodin, Drew Shore, Michael Chaput, and Jack Skilly. On defense, you have Eric Branson, in goal you have Ryan Miller. Who else do you have here? You have Philip Holm under contract for 1 year. Let's see who's some of these other guys that contracts are coming up. Oh, here we go. Joseph Labat, Alex Grenier, Evan McKinney, Michael Zalewski, Tom Nilsson, Michael Gartig, Chad Billins, and Borna Redelincic, whatever his name is. Looking at these guys, I'm looking at their system. It's pretty bare. Like, it's pretty bare. It's cupboard. You got to stock the cupboard. I know they tried last year. I really believe Vancouver's in a spot where it's a rebuild. But what level? Because I'm looking at this team. I don't trust Jim Benning to do the job very well. I don't expect the owner to stay out of it. That's the problem. Tortorella was hired. That was the owner. The soft or the retool and then trading away a lot of your assets. That's the owner. Like, I just don't get it. And this team they're my favorite team. But I'm not going to be delusional and lie to myself like Toronto fans and say, oh, this team is going to be Stanley Cup contender. I'm like, it might be a few years. And looking at this, which everyone's saying it's a great time for Canadian hockey. Well, it's a great time for Canadian hockey, but it's not a great time to be a Vancouver Canucks fan. I lived through the rebuild of Brian Burke, where they traded away McLean, Linden, Bure, a lot of my favorite players, and you could say within 3-4 years they were competitive, so I don't really blame that one. But I'm looking at this one. Brian Burke, I trusted. Jim Benning and Trevor Linden, it is what it is. But anyway, that's my video. Be sure to like, comment, favorite, subscribe. This is me here once again. Peace.